Jeff Iafrate, your host for today, filling in for Adam Beydoun, Sam Flannel. And Sam, I have an interesting question, and I'll go around the room for this because this is something that I sat on after the draft, and I've talked with some of my friends about it. And I think it's an interesting question because we know every year Brad Holmes, so far, 2 for 2, Brad Holmes finds somebody. I mean, the first year was Amon-Ra St. Brown. He fouled it up the second year, James Houston, Malcolm Rodriguez. Like this, it's not a matter of if, it's when. And this year, the draft's over with. And we've been talking a lot about Brian Branch, Jack Campbell, Jahmyr Gibbs, Hendon Hooker. But what about these other guys, right? What about a Broderick Martin? What about a Colby Sorsdahl? What about Antoine Green? What about these guys? And I want to ask you first, before I give my answer, I'll go last. Out of the players drafted, who is the Amon-Ra, the James Houston, the Malcolm Rodriguez in this class this year? Who do you think?
Well, I hope that it's Broderick Martin because there's still a lot of questions. I know we've talked about it on a lot of shows. Did the Lions do enough to address the defensive line? Did they do enough to where they don't allow the franchise record for rushing yards in the game to the Carolina Panthers? Did they do enough to where they avoid scoring 45 points in a game and losing? And Broderick Martin, he was obviously somebody that they coveted. They traded up to get him. Brad Holmes traded up to get him. And if Broderick Martin has the type of impact that even, let's say, an Ali McNeil had when he was also drafted in the third round, I think this would really, really help their defense. All he has to do is become a rotational piece that gets snaps on the defensive line, is a linchpin in their run defense, and gets some interior pressure. If he does that, I think that Broderick Martin might end up being one of the better picks in the draft because it was such a need. And I know I was a little bit puzzled with them waiting so long to do it, but maybe they saw something in Broderick Martin. I don't think he's the type of guy that's going to be game-wrecking or dominant, but I think he can be solid. Mm-hmm. And if he is solid, given the fact that they need a defensive line presence so much, I think that Broderick Martin can be seen as one of the better picks in this entire draft, like including first and second round if he pans out. So I'm going to go with Broderick Martin as my sleeper.
And by the way, feel free, call in 313-552-6322. Share your thoughts. Who's the sleeper in the 2023 NFL Draft? Who could be the Amon-Ra, the James Houston, the Malcolm Rodriguez? And JB, I'll go to you next. Which of these late round picks are you looking forward to seeing this year?
I'm actually looking forward to seeing the wide receiver from North Carolina. What is it?
Antoine Green.
Yeah. Definitely an interesting name. I didn't see a lot of film on the guy, but from what I've read and from what I've heard, like he is progressing solid as a receiver, especially the last 2 seasons at North Carolina. So just getting him here in the mix, especially with J-Mo gone for 6 games, seeing the kind of production he might be able to provide this, Lions team, it'll definitely be interesting. I'll say that.
What about you, Gabby?
Not necessarily a late pick, but if we're comparing him to St. Brown, I'm going to say Brian Branch because I think he's going to come in with that chip on the shoulder, like that iconic clip from Hard Knocks with St. Brown running through everyone that was picked before him. I think Branch is going to come in with that same fire underneath him and having something to prove, especially being the only one that came back to walk across that stage.
And he was easily, I had, if you would have told me Brian Branch fell in the second round before the draft, I'd be like, you're crazy. We'll see. I mean, he's a first round pick, and I think that's going to piss him off. And I'll take a pissed off DB with Aaron Glenn. I think he's going to turn him into a solid player. I'll go easily Broderick Martin. And that's why I love what you said, just because. And the reason why I say Broderick Martin, because Brian Branch is my favorite pick, to agree with the Gabby there, but with Broderick Martin, that's somebody that no one's really talking about. And I think for him and his size, like, especially, I was watching the draft with Michael Gentry, our Red Wings beat reporter, a good friend of mine, and we're sitting there watching the draft, and we see the Lions trade up. We're like, who are they trading up for? Broderick Martin, the 6'5", 350-pound defensive tackle out of Western Kentucky. And then the more you look, I'm like, well, I'm trying to figure out who Broderick Martin is. And my gosh, not only his size, but what Brad says about him with, how fluid he is at his size. And Neil Rule always brings up on Big D Energy, anything to prevent 300 yards rushing against the Carolina Panthers. And here you go. Here's a big man. A man who could fill space in the middle. Now, does he have the pressure, the pass rush upside? I don't know. But still, he is a massive human being, and I think he'll help out against the run. JB, send him through. Who do we got calling the show?
We got Mark here. He wants to call and talk about the draft with you guys.
What's going on, Mark? Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, guys. I just wanted to say real quick, you guys are awesome. Definitely have your finger on the pulse of the city. I was in shock like everyone else on draft night. I watched you guys do your thing at Fifth Avenue. So native Detroiter, live in Fort Worth, but I still pay attention to everything on the daily. Colby Sorsdahl, I think, is really interesting. Is he a North Dakota State guy, if I remember correctly? I mean, that's a real football team. I mean, they win championships. They constantly play for championships. The dude is huge. Sounds like he's got a really nasty, mean streak. I mean, the formula is there. All great points about the defensive tackle because we need it so bad.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't think people should sleep on that guy either. I think he's got a good shot to be a nice part of the rotation. And have a great morning, you guys.
And by the way, Mark,
go ahead.
Thank you for calling the show. Thank you for supporting the network. And I want to comment on what you just said because Corby Sorsdahl, and to kind of just help you out here, he went to William and Mary, but still a guy who's
that's right.
A guy who's very versatile. To your point, Mark. I mean, that's what drew Brad to him. I mean, he played right tackle, then he moved to guard in the bowl game, I believe, or at the East versus West, the game, the Invitational, and then he played a little bit of center. So the guy plays three different positions on the offensive line. You got him in the 6th round. I mean, the 5th round. It's great value. So it's a great point, Mark. Hopefully he can start some.
Yeah, we got big offensive line contracts coming up. Yeah, have a great morning, guys.
Appreciate the call.
Thank you.
See, and that's somebody that I was going to mention too. But Broderick Martin's just the most intriguing one. But Colby's somebody that not only is a perfect fit for what the Lions need on their offensive line, but character-wise, he likes fishing. So Frank Ragnow. They're all going to love him. And for a guy who could play multiple positions, you lose Evan Brown, who kind of filled that role a little bit. He could play guard. He could play center. Now you got basically a taller and bigger Evan Brown who can come in and play that role.
Well,
so, solid.
If somehow Colby Sorsdahl hits and he's that diamond in the rough 5th-round pick, and you have discussions of whether you want to pay guys moving forward, maybe Colby Sorsdahl is a guy on a rookie contract, is sort of I would say a chance to make your strength even stronger. I didn't hate that pick at all. If he actually turns out, if he actually becomes something, if he actually becomes a starter and he's on the cheap, this Detroit Lions offensive line will just continue to be elite down the road. So that's a good one. I like the Colby Sorsdahl pick as well.
Big Con 51 says the fact that Brad gave up so much for Broderick makes me think Brad knows something. He did have an eye for Donald. And listen, if Broderick Martin could be 1% of Aaron Donald, I think we'd all be ecstatic. But you're right. You're spot on, Big Con. I mean, if Brad has an eye for defensive tackles, I mean, Levi didn't really necessarily pan out yet, but we don't know. He was injured. Still a little bit upside there. Liam McNeil's solid. He clearly can tell if you can stop the run. And here you go, 6'5", 350 human being later. He'll be just fine. I think they're going to need Broderick Martin there. And then you got veterans in that room too. I mean, you got Bugs, you got Benito Jones. So great supporting cast around Broderick Martin. But JB, send the caller through. Who do we got?
All right, I will send you guys Todd.
Todd, welcome to the show. What do you want to discuss, my man?
Hey, just want to speak about Goff and getting rid of him.
Okay.
We've got, you keep that money and you're building the Lions team around him. We always talk about how these average quarterbacks are able to succeed because of the team itself and not the quarterback. So hoping that maybe we get rid of him and go with Hendon and we're able to keep our core together. I mean, I don't know how many people have really spoken about that.
Yeah, and by the way, you're spot on. The ideology you just brought up is why I'm excited to see what Hendon Hooker is, because even if he's Jared Goff, let's not even say he's, some superstar quarterback. Let's just say Hendon Hooker's average. Imagine having an average quarterback like Jared, because I believe Jared's average. I mean, he has good years. He's probably a little better than average. But if Hendon could even get to that point, Todd, you have him on a rookie deal. And then you have Jonah Jackson, Amon-Ra, Penei Sewell, these guys coming up. And now we're talking more and more about free agents that could potentially be available or via trade, like the 49ers just did with, landing Hargraves and getting McCaffrey last year. They do this because you have a quarterback on a rookie deal. So you're spot on, Todd. It opens up a ton of possibilities.
Yeah, we go to about an 8-year window with him.
What'd you say?
We go to about an 8-year window with him.
Yes. Yeah. No, you're I mean, especially, listen, if Hendon Hooker, they brought up his age. Brad and Dan commented how much they actually prefer his age. He's 25, he's mature, and they still, I mean, quarterbacks nowadays, you play till you're near 40. So at 25 years old, you can get 10, 15 years out of them. So solid pick, but appreciate you calling,
Right.
Todd. Thank you.
Yeah, take care.
Yep, take care. Well, what do you think about that, Sam Flannel?
Well, it's a conversation that certainly needs to be had. The Jared Goff discussion is obviously one that is very, very polarizing, even amongst Woodward sports hosts, and I totally get it. He obviously he had a great year last year, a worthy Pro Bowl, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions in this Ben Johnson system. Obviously has amazing rapport with Amon-Ra St. Brown, but if he does that again, we keep talking about it. He might ask for $45-50 million a year, and I honestly think he would be
$50 million.
Exactly, Smokey. I think he would be justified in doing so, given what you see Daniel Jones and his 15 touchdown passes make. It's a conversation that certainly needs to be had.
Let me just call some comments out here, just so we get some clarification on what we're discussing. Okay, Paul Thomas, brilliant caller. Let's dump a top 3 quarterback in the NFC for a college kid with a torn ACL. Now, Paul, let me just break this down for you. I'm not saying to go ahead and just dump Goff, and you're assuming that at least I don't have any film on Hendon Hooker. This is for Brad and Dan. They're going to be able to watch Hendon all year in practice, right? I'm not there in Allen Park every single day at practice. I'm not there talking to Hendon Hooker after practice, before practice. Like, that's their
I'll
job.
keep my eyes out.
That is Gabby's job.
There you
she
go.
will be doing all of that and more. So you could go to her for those questions. But for me, that's their job to evaluate Hendon Hooker. I'm not saying bench Goff, start Hendon. If he stinks, they'll know he stinks. And at that point, you think, okay, well, we don't have a better option than Goff. We'll go ahead and stick with him. But if Hendon has higher upside, I mean, right, you saw reports years ago when I joked about it yesterday with Patrick Mahomes. I never believed any of those reports. Matt Mahomes looks good in practice. All these things with different arm angles. They were right. He's a stud. So my point being, if Hendon shows those things in practice, then yeah, you're going to have to at least consider him. But I'm not saying blindly just start Hendon and send Jared packing. Like, Jared's fine. He's fine. He can win a division. He can win a playoff game. But Hendon Hooker, there's a ton of upside there, and there's a reason why Brad said that in the press conference. Love his upside. You don't just say that. Like, there's clearly they see something in Hendon Hooker, and we'll see if he pans out. It's up to him.
Absolutely. I see Hendon Hooker as the 3rd best quarterback prospect in this last draft. I think he's a better prospect than Anthony Richardson and a better prospect than Will Levis, and the Lions got him in the 3rd round. If Jared Goff asks for too much money and they want to sort of hand the keys over to Hendon Hooker and give them more flexibility to keep up this great roster that they're creating and supplement it even more, I wouldn't necessarily hate it. It is a very, very good contingency plan.
It's at least a little bit of leverage.
The Packers gifted the Lions Brian Branch, and they asked for nothing. That trade blew my fucking mind.
By the way, Brian Branch, so excited that he's a Detroit Lion. Because this is somebody that we mocked for a while in the first round. We knew he was a first-round pick, one of the best safeties, the best safety in the draft. And there he is. He's available. Lions go up and get their guy, and I love it. Because we talk about this all the time. CJ on a 1-year deal. Again, Tracy Walker coming off an Achilles injury. Brian Branch played most of his playing career at Alabama in the nickel. He can play multiple positions, but again, he's a football player. And those are the type of guys that Brad and Dan have been pursuing this entire time. He's a perfect fit.
I won't lie to you guys, okay? I was frustrated last night, okay? And I wasn't frustrated for the reasons you think. I was genuinely happy to be as frustrated as I was, and I know there's been a lot of talk for months now leading into the draft. But, one of the common things I think you and I would have a conversation about was, hey, this year is different than last year. Last year was so easy to predict and expect what the Lions could or should do that every pick they made in the draft, you were like, yeah, cool, love it. Brad Holmes, let him cook, right? That's the mantra around town today. And then this year, from Jahmyr Gibbs to Sam Laporta, for fuck's sake, the only one that made sense at the time they took him was Brian Branch and Hendon Hooker. That's how unfucking predictable the Lions front office were this year. And you know what? I can be frustrated. I mean, it's fine, but that's actually a good thing. Mm-hmm. I don't see that as a bad thing. Now, we want to get to the picks. The picks are what they are, man. They are what they are. Doesn't matter what I wanted, even though I really like the players they got, and
Right.
3 of them I really like, really like, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you wanted. It doesn't matter what Jeff wanted. It doesn't matter anymore. The players and the picks are what they are. All right? So now let's look at this football team, because nothing is going to change the players that they took. They're here. Embrace it. Let's move forward, okay? They are what they are. I'll tell you what I'm happy with. I'm happy with Jack Campbell at 18. I defended it day one after they took him. I'm going to keep defending it. I had him as a late first-round grade. You came on with that as well later on.
Yeah.
Here we are. I don't mind it. I can live with the Campbell.
Best linebacker to me in the draft.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I love the Brian Branch pick, obviously.
You know I do,
The
too.
value, where they got him. I'd love to see the medical. I want to understand why arguably the best safety in the draft fell to the second round. There had to be something, but at the end of the day, that is the leader of a Nick Saban coached defense. I think he provides a ton of value for the Lions day one. Day one. You don't have to wait for Brian Branch to contribute. And then, of course, Hendon Hooker. I love the pick. And I love the pick because it's insurance. If you never get into a car wreck, great. You don't have to use it. And if you total your car, that's what insurance is for. I have no problem with Hendon Hooker. Let him rest. Let him learn the playbook. Let him get acclimated. He's an adult, 25 years old. I spent a third-round pick on him. Zero risk involved. Zero risk involved.
Right.
And that is my future expected backup to Jared Goff. Whether or not they extend Goff, this is all talk we have all the rest of our lives to do. It doesn't matter. Overall, I like the pick. And then there's Gibbs and Laporta. Okay? I just got to be honest. You want me to lie? You want me to sit up here and lie to you? I can't do that.
No.
I still have a hard time digesting Gibbs at 12, okay?
Okay.
That doesn't mean I haven't accepted it. It's tough. How I feel about first-round running backs, what the data tells me, the money involved, the second contracts never working out for these backs. I'm going to forget all that, okay? And I'm going to play along with all of you this morning in the game of, I actually think he's a really good running back. Mm-hmm. I think he adds a lot of dynamic, explosive plays to this offense, especially in the pass-catching area of his game. If it is Alvin Kamara 2.0, no one's going to be happier.
Right.
Okay? But I heard Alvin Kamara 2.0 with Swift. That's a whole different headache. But there's nothing I can do. They took him at 12. What the fuck am I going to do? Sit here and bitch and complain? There's nothing I can do. So all I can do is look at the football player and what do I expect from him? Well, I expect him to be a really damn good football player. Clearly, because Brad Holmes valued him so much that he was a second running back off the board as early as 12. In a year where we expected secondary player after edge rusher to go anywhere from 8 to 17, no doubts. Okay? And then Sam Laporta. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. The whole Iowa connection, I know Neil Rule's going to lose his shit, but the kid's a good tight end.
Yeah. And
The kid can do a lot of different things. The Lions are notorious for 2 tight end sets. This is not the end of the world. This doesn't devalue their offense. They upgraded.
They did.
They upgraded at tight end, and I'd be a liar if I said they didn't. Look, this time of year, there's no football. People love to throw out rankings. Hell, we did our top 10 head coaches yesterday. And quarterbacks, I think, is a very interesting conversation. So before I even get to any ranking or where I think some quarterbacks should or shouldn't be, I just want to ask a general question with all of you at home. Is Jared Goff a top 10 quarterback? And look, when you answer it, it doesn't have to mean that he's one of the 10 most talented quarterbacks. Your criteria may differ from mine. Circumstances may change your opinion on some quarterbacks than others. Deshaun Watson pre-Cleveland, post-Houston and all that crap, and then currently in Cleveland, is not a top 10 quarterback yet. Can be. Has more talent than some of the guys held that even made this list, right? So I think circumstances matter. Daniel Jones having a good season is just what it is. It's a good season. It is by no statistical measure an elite season or even close to elite. When Jared Goff finishes in the top 7 of touchdowns, passer rating, and passing yards, that's not a good season. That is considered borderline elite. But we'll get to making the case for Jared Goff. I do think he's top 10. I actually think he's 10. And the conversation he falls into for me is Dak Prescott, who's just the white version or the black version of Kirk Cousins. Then you have Kirk Cousins, who's the white version of Dak Prescott. A year ago, you probably would have been making a case for Ryan Tannehill coming off the season he had with A.J. Brown. But that's the circle he's in. Derek Carr, some of those guys, just guys that are good quarterbacks that can play at a really high level and also at a really, really low level.
Well, how about Matthew Stafford? He's technically a top 10 quarterback, but not the last season.
Matthew Stafford, I think, has to be in that top 10. I think it's a given. Given the season he had when healthy, last year wasn't healthy. Look, if his elbow is hanging on by a string, it is what it is. But the same thing with Aaron Rodgers. Dude's 1 year removed from an MVP.
Right.
From back-to-back MVPs, actually. So I think there's some historical evidence that you have to factor in. And also last season's performance and how tangible was it? How repeatable is it? Daniel Jones, I mean, he can have the season he had again. Giants probably win 7-8 games. Like, he's nothing special. Dak Prescott, turning the ball over at a higher rate than ever. Kirk Cousins, good luck with that. Ryan Tannehill, on his way out. Like, who are the quarterbacks? So, look, Lucas, if you want to throw up the list, this is my comment to a Twitter list. So there was a PFF list that was put out, and it basically had Mahomes at 1, Josh Allen at 2, Burrow at 3, Lawrence at 4, Hurts at 5, Herbert at 6, and the rest of the list was garbage. Long story short, Kirk Cousins was 9, and Dak Prescott was 10, for context. And so I commented, and this was my top 10 list. I have Mahomes at 1, obviously. Burrow at 2. I think that's pretty obvious, but apparently not obvious to fucking America. Jalen Hurts, I think, very disrespected in a lot of quarterback lists. Dude's coming off an MVP-type season. He should be third on that list. He was the best quarterback, and it is the best quarterback rating in the NFC. He's top 3. Trevor Lawrence was the best quarterback in the NFL from Week 9 to Week 16. For the second half of the season, he was the best quarterback in the NFL statistically across the board. That's not even up for debate. That happened. So the sooner you acknowledge this guy is him, the sooner we can all get along. Number 5, Josh Allen. I don't like the turnovers. Way too many turnovers. That's why he's going to fall on this list. A year ago, he probably would have been top 3. Hands down, nobody would have argued. He turns the ball over way too much. I don't like it. Justin Herbert, I still think has to mature a little bit as a quarterback. Look, you want to pin the 27-0 loss or really lead, and then them blowing it on him, be my guest. I'm not much of a fan of that.
Care
but
about that. I don't care.
I still think he has to mature.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson, a healthy Lamar, I think is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And then I rounded it off with Stafford, Rodgers, out of respect, along with what I expect them to do this year, and then Jared Goff. Now, you can argue Deshaun Watson. You could argue Tua Tagovailoa, Dak Prescott. You can argue Kirk Cousins. Be my guest. But what do you think of the list?
I think you looked at my notes.
Okay.
Because I'm going to be honest.
I tweeted this yesterday, bitch.
I didn't even see this tweet. Swear, I did not see this tweet. I just wrote a top 10 list before the show while I was just writing some things down. It's the same exact list. Just different.
Different order?
Yeah, but I have everybody you have in that list. I agree, 100%. I think Goff, the big thing, and
why is Goff in your 10? Let me ask you that first.
It's because coming off the season he just had matters.
Okay,
I
so it does
value
matter
that.
to you.
Yes, I'm not a guy, and I get why people would say, "Well, Deshaun Watson's better." Yes, in Houston he was better. He still has to prove that in Cleveland. Jared Goff, if you want to bring up, if you're going off past success, then you could bring up Goff and use it. Well, the last 2 years in LA weren't great. I'm not doing that. I'm going off last season, going into this season. And if you're going by that metric, Jared Goff is a top 10 quarterback, statistically. He was last year, and the guys that I have left off this list that just missed it, Dak, who you kind of summarized it perfectly. Dak, I think, numbers-wise, could be a top 10 quarterback, but last year, definitely not. Deshaun Watson, no. Tua Tagovailoa wasn't healthy enough. So Jared Goff
Geno
makes
Smith.
the list. Geno Smith, to me, 1 year doesn't make you immediately better than Jared Goff.
I love
So,
him. I
so
love him.
on like the long list, it's Tua, Stafford, Deshaun Watson, Derek Carr, Geno Smith, and then Jared Goff at 16.
I honestly think they just haven't watched Lions football. And it's okay. It's fine.
I just don't know how, looking at last season with all of Tua's injuries, that you can still rank Goff lower than him. And it's nothing against him.
I
He
think
was
if
just
you want to
out.
rank by talent, Jared Goff is not in my top
Right,
10.
right.
Because I'm going to have Tua over him. When healthy, Tua's much more talented. Let's see, Deshaun Watson, easily more talented. But I'm still going to have him over Geno Smith and Kirk Cousins.
So we just need more information on what all he factored into
Yeah, I mean,
this
everybody's
exact
criteria
list.
is
Yeah,
different
Yeah.
for this stuff. To me, I think it matters that you finish top 7, top 5 in passing yards, top 5 in passer rating, and top 7 in touchdowns. I think that matters. Like, that really matters to me. He did that. Whether you like... you don't have to love Jared Goff. Statistically, he was one of the 7 best quarterbacks in the NFL last year. Does that not carry any weight? Geno Smith, yes, 1 year. I've seen Jared Goff do this before. He did it in L.A. So this isn't... Oh, Jared Goff's first season? Oh, my goodness. Where did this come from? This was Jared Goff in L.A. when they paid him all the money they paid him.
Yeah, the first 3-4 years in LA for Goff, very productive. And I think that's what people forget too. Like even Deshaun Watson, the guys that, you know, and I love this comment too, because Stephen Baffey pretty much summarizes how I feel as well. He said, once you get past 7, 8, there are about 10 quarterbacks that are so similar you could debate it for years. Yeah, like after I think about 8, 9, now you're just having debates. I think you'd probably lose every debate if you want to go against Goff at 10 right now. But again, PFF, I saw the list. That was terrible.
My criteria...
The quarterback, I don't know how they value it either, but I don't agree with Jared Goff at 16.
We're going to get to that next, where I think circumstance, you know, what's your situation? Who's your head coach? What's the roster look like? All that probably goes into weighing this type of decision. But when we just want to talk about performance last year, right? If I were to rank a top 10 list alone, just off of performance,
He's still
I'd have
there.
to move Jared Goff into the top 6.
I was going to say he's still in
just
the
off
top
of
10.
performance, threw more yards, more touchdowns, Josh Allen. I mean...
And
But that's not what the list is about. It's not only the statistics. You're looking at the complete body of work, their talent, yes, of course. You're looking at their recent success, their recent ability, issues that you have with them. Do we both love Josh Allen?
Yeah.
Where'd you have him on your list?
He's top 4.
You have him at 4? Okay. I'm not going to kill you for it. To me, I'm just concerned about the turnovers. That's why I have him at 5. But still a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I don't
regardless.
think there's anything wrong with that. But let's just have an honest conversation. Tua, is he more talented than Jared Goff?
No, I wouldn't say.
Talented, depends how you define it.
Yeah,
but, you know,
arm
I don't
talent?
mind. No, because I think Jared Goff has a hell of an arm.
See, what do we...
Especially in the pocket. I think he's a much better pocket passer than a lot of the guys not only on the list, but who didn't make the
And
list.
he's not mobile.
Russell Wilson, mobile dependent.
Right.
Lamar Jackson, God bless him.
He's just
Kyler Murray.
He's just
Kyler
dynamic.
Murray is one of my favorite ones that were brought up on this list. Kyler Murray is
Oh, jeez.
beyond, not only injury prone, guys. Not only injury prone. He doesn't have... I don't want to get into knocking other players. That's not the point. Kyler Murray, to me, his recent history tells me he's turning the ball over at a higher rate. He's throwing fewer touchdowns and running more. And whether you want to blame the coaching, the system, the weapons around him, be my guest. I don't care. But today, I'm taking Jared Goff over Kyler Murray. Today, I'm taking Jared Goff over Derek Carr, over Cousins, over Dak, over Geno.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm crazy. I think that's like a given. I don't even think it's a debate.
Well, it depends. If you're going off production, Jared wins that.
Oh, never hurt. So stability.
And if you want to bring up playoff success, he has more playoff success than any of those guys. So what metric you want? I mean, we could go with any metric, and I think Jared would win it.
I'm gonna read like the segment that he put underneath it. Goff is in an outstanding offense with one of the best coordinators in football running the show. Depending on the numbers you look at, his stats make him look like one of the best passers in football. But it's clear to anybody with a critical eye that doesn't quite really match. Goff ranked 19th last season in PFF passing grade and 30th in big time throw rate. He's a solid quarterback for the
Excuse me.
offense.
Oh, I apologize. No, I take back everything I said. He doesn't throw it sexy enough. You know who isn't a sexy thrower of the football that nobody wants to acknowledge? Patrick Mahomes. Because shut the fuck up, Lucas. 1 second, let me finish, and then you'll understand what I'm saying. You know what makes Mahomes so fucking great? Is that his first 30 passes of his, let's say you go over 35 passes, right? 30 of them are just intermediate, short, on the money, perfect passes. And then he has the 5 what the fuck throws.
Right.
Wow. Oh my goodness. It's not always about making the deep throw downfield or the one off your back foot or in duress. It's about making the normal, simple throws perfect on a consistent basis. That's what Mahomes does so well. Joe Burrow, all the great quarterbacks. You want to go to Peyton, you want to go to Tom, you want to go to anybody. They all do the easy, quote, easy routine stuff at an elite level. Jared Goff is doing that. He did that last year. You want to use the first half of the season? Jared Goff ranked top 5 in all of those metrics in terms of balls thrown over 20 yards, big play completions, all of that. And the Lions were losing. And then he started getting really elite in terms of not turning the ball over and throwing the ball 5, 10 yards at a time. And you know what happened? Lions started winning. Still finishing with a top 10 offense. Please critical eye me.
No, and this is what I hate about that description too, because I was reading some of the other descriptions, and Tua, who's ranked 11 by the way, Jared's ranked 16th. Look at the description for Tua. At the bottom of it, because it writes about, just overcoming the concussions, and it writes here on PFF, he has elite potential within Mike McDaniel's offense, but now needs to repeat it. So for Tua, he's got elite potential in Mike McDaniel's offense, but for Goff, it's he's just because Ben Johnson's so damn
putting
good.
Up MVP
It's
numbers.
like, so are we gonna diminish Tua for playing in Mike McDaniel's offense? Like, what are we doing here? I think
they're giving him a compliment in that, where in Goff's description they're just
it's a backhanded compliment.
Yeah, it's
with
not
Jared
even
Goff.
a compliment for him.
And I didn't know
Tua
Tua had a Patrick Mahomes deep throw, a deep ball. No, he doesn't. It's the same thing. If you want to talk about Jared Goff's deep ball, you got to bring up Tua's as well. So again, it's not to discredit Tua or anything, but for Jared, no one's saying he's elite. That's not the argument. I think we'd all agree Jared is.
I think there's 6, maybe 7 elite quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Mahomes, Burrow, Trevor Lawrence. I don't love the turnovers, but Josh Allen.
Yes, I would agree with all those.
I mean, you have to say Justin Herbert.
Yep. That's all. That's pretty consensus.
I mean, you would probably say Lamar.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, but I mean, that's why I said 6 or 7. I'm at least going to give you the one number, right? So.
But those
it's
are
pretty
the
consensus.
guys.
Those are the guys where
like across the board are everyone's top 6.
exactly. 7. That's the kid that you raised that went to Harvard, did everything right, got married, 3 kids, financially stable, never caused you a single problem in your life. You just sleep good at night knowing like I did good with that. And then there's the 26, 25 other teams that are like I raised a fucking idiot, right? And just here we are. Here we are. And then you have to rank between which idiot you like the most. Jamison Williams, if you missed it yesterday. Wow. Burner speed. He flashed what you saw at Alabama.
Yeah.
And before we show you the video, I'll backtrack a little bit. Coming out of college, prior to the national championship game, Jamison Williams was the best wide receiver prospect going into that draft. Better than Drake London, better than Olave, better than Garrett Wilson.
And he did something those guys
Better
didn't
than
do.
Jahan Dotson.
He cooked Georgia.
He was the guy.
Yeah.
He was the guy. And unfortunately, he tore his ACL in his last game for Alabama. And that led him on a journey of recovery, going into the draft, uncertainty, and for, I believe, actually 3 wide receivers. Let me think. London, Wilson, Olave. Yes, 3 were taken before him. And then Dotson and Burks went shortly after him.
Yep.
So Jamison Williams went from being the number 1 wide receiver prospect to being taken 4th among wide receivers in the first round of the NFL draft. And who selected him? A team that was picking at 32 and saw a golden opportunity to get a player, yes, who would likely miss 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 games in his first year while he recovers. But a player who could add a dimension to your offense that we are seeing work very effectively out in Miami.
Oh, yeah.
Speed. It's just speed. Yes, there are creative concepts to run these players open. Yes, you're going to put them in motion and send them underneath, over the top. You're going to run 10, 15-yard dig routes. Once you have secondary players on their heels, it makes those comeback routes, those dig routes, those 10 and ins, 10 and outs so much easier, because you're running full speed at them and they are terrified of you beating them. And unless they have safety coverage and safety support, yeah, they're going to be playing 10, 15 yards off of this guy. And that's going to allow for easy completions. And you're seeing it with Jalen Waddle. You're seeing it with Tyreek Hill, especially Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Burner speed from Jamison Williams. He's been the story for a few weeks now. Once he was activated, eligible to practice, he's been the talk of town, rightfully so.
Right.
I'm very excited to see this kid. Now, will it be against Jacksonville? We'll see. We'll talk to Doc second hour. We'll get his thoughts on his comeback. Campbell came out and said it would take a lot for him to play. So I'm not raising my expectations for this upcoming Sunday against Jacksonville. But, Jeff, in that video, oh my goodness.
He was flying.
Effortless.
Makes me even more curious what his 40 would have been if he was healthy. I think it would have been easily 4.3 speed. I mean, Chris Olave ran pretty much 4.3 something speed. I think it was 4.37 if I'm not mistaken. Jamison, no questions, the fastest wide receiver in the class. And on top of that, what he does to your offense with his speed. Yes, throwing deep with Jared Goff, that's everybody's concern, but it's not always throwing deep, right? If Jared Goff has protection, he showed it in L.A., he can hit deep balls. Now, how consistently is the question? But you can use Jamison in a lot of different ways. Yards after catch, kind of like what Tua does with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, taking slants to the house. You can have an exact route that Cornelius Johnson ran against Ohio State. How Cornelius took that thing to the house, Jamison could easily do that as well. So, again, it's not about throwing the deep ball. It is, partially, but a lot of it's yards after catch. Just get Jamison the ball in space and watch him work. That's really what it comes down to. And think about how much better he's going to make Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? Like, Amon-Ra has been the number one wide receiver all year, and he's still putting up these numbers. And Braylon Edwards always says it's much easier to be the number two than the number one, right? You have a guy next to you who's taking all the attention off of you on the outside. So with Jamison, if he is that number one wide receiver we all predict him to be, Amon-Ra is going to be even more dangerous because you have a guy who can stretch the field, and it'll open up more things for Amon-Ra. It's going to keep defenses on their toes, man. It really is. And I think Jamison, with this current offense, their ability to run the ball, establish play action, you can have Jamison sneak by. I'm telling you, some big plays are going to happen. And DJ Chark, he was supposed to be that guy until Jamison gets back. But I think Jamison just all around is much better, and he has a way higher upside than DJ Chark. So I'm extremely excited to see him on the field, man. Really.
Look, let's be real. You signed DJ Chark. Why? And wait. Let's backtrack even more than that. How long was the deal, Jeff? How long was the Chark deal? 1 year.
It was a prove-it year. Go.
It was a 1 year deal.
Yeah.
No risk. You put a little money into a wide receiver coming off an injury that you would like to play 10, 12, 14 games. And if he did that, cool. If not the end of the world, because you're not committed long-term to him, and you're just waiting for your burner first-round wide receiver to come into the fold. Now, if you haven't seen the video, I'll play for you right now. Jamison Williams, yesterday, in practice, showing off speed maybe 2 or 3 other guys in the NFL can even display.
Yeah, that's insane. I can't wait to see him on an actual NFL field going against opposing secondaries, because I'm telling you right now, you can't teach speed. You could teach technique, you could teach route running, all of that. And Jamison has great route running, but that speed is unteachable. I mean, that is something that you can't game plan for, similar to what Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle can do. And what was the narrative with Tua? He can't throw deep balls, but they're finding ways to make big plays with Tua. So if Ben Johnson is as smart as we say he is, or think he is, he's going to be able to find different ways to use JMO, whether wide receiver screens, quick out routes. You can use them in slants. Just get him the ball, man. That's literally all you have to do.
Let's play it again. I want us to put something into perspective about this. This is a guy that's he's recovering from an ACL injury. No brace. That's the first thing I notice. No brace. He looks very fit.
He looks
and his
comfortable.
separation speed here is, even St. Brown is pointing in, what is that thing?
Yeah.
What is that?
That's a Ferrari. Yeah, that's a Ferrari.
That's why you drafted him. And look, I understand it's difficult sometimes. I always tell you guys, it's different. There's a huge difference between being patient and complacent. In my opinion, the Jameson Williams draft pick, you always needed to be patient with. So I do believe it will work out very well for you. Having said that, when you start the year 1-6, even if I don't agree with it, I do understand a fan base saying, Brad Holmes, what the hell? We could use somebody on defense right now. We could use a Jordan Davis. We could use this guy. We could use that guy. Sure.
Right.
But I do this how many times a week? 4 most important positions in football. Pass rusher, pass protector, quarterback, wide receiver. He's drafted you a pass rusher. He's drafted you a generational tackle. Hasn't addressed the quarterback yet. He's drafted a wide receiver. One in the 4th round, the other now in the 1st round.
Right.
You are building a team the way it is supposed to be built in today's NFL. Now, does your defense need to be better? Yes, it does. And you have this upcoming offseason, 6 picks in the first 3 rounds to address your defense. And I don't want to hear it's a talent or it's about, they're all young. Look at the Jets. Go look at the Seahawks. Teams are finding ways, even with rookie, second-year guys. You will find a way if your coaching is good enough. So you have an excellent opportunity this offseason. And what Jameson Williams brings, Jeff, more than anything, is he brings an element of unpredictability. And I don't want to say fear, but I think you know where I'm going with this.
I mean, a little bit.
You have to respect every aspect of this offense. And that just opens up a whole new 20, 30-page chapter on what Ben Johnson and this offense can do. And I'm excited to watch it play out.
Yeah.
I really am. It's going to be great. I think he's going to be fantastic. That type of speed you can't teach. That's the type of speed you've been missing in this offense. Khalif Raymond,
But think about some of the catches Khalif had that he was caught. Right, like in Chicago, he catches, I think it was like a 15-yard slant, and he gets caught. He runs like 25 yards, he gets caught. If that's Jameson, you don't think he gets caught at that point.
Tom Kennedy.
Tom Kennedy's another one. Excuse me. And listen, those guys, they filled in roles, they played solid. But Jameson, there's different expectations. And for people to see Jameson, there's going to be an element of just getting used to not only the NFL, but the playbook. So, again, he's not going to come out his first game and have 100 yards. He very well could. But my expectations aren't to, put the league on notice right away. I mean, it's been a while since he suited up and played football and actually played, had contact. So just temper the expectations for Jameson. But I'm telling you, he's going to hit his stride. He'll be just fine. Next year is a big year for this offense as well with those guys. So he's going to be elite, man. I really do believe that.
Let's address 2 things really quickly. Number 1, I don't need Jared Goff to throw the ball 50, 60 yards downfield on a dime.
Yeah.
To Jameson Williams. Do you guys not watch how the Miami Dolphins get Tyreek Hill out in space? It is not always the deep ball. It is the intermediate 10, 15-yard, 17-yard, 19-yard route. It is the underneath. It is the bubble screen. There are so many other ways you can hit the home run with that type of speed. Go look at Miami. And if you don't believe me, do me a favor. Once you're finished watching the show, go on YouTube. Go watch 2, 3, 4 Miami Dolphins games. And you'll see how to use speed effectively on offense. Kyle Shanahan does a great job of it.
Yep.
His disciple Mike McDaniel is doing a great job of it out in Miami. You want to use speed. It doesn't need to be vertical only. The days of the Randy Moss, the days of Calvin Johnson, where these guys are only able to run 40, 50, 60 yards downfield, and that's how you throw the deep ball. No. Even Calvin was one of the best route runners I had seen in my life. Mm-hmm. He could run the slant. He could run the underneath throw. He could run a 10 dig. He could run 15 and out, 15 in. He was exceptional. So, look, this type of wide receiver, I'm not saying he's going to be Tyreek Hill. But what I'm telling you is you can learn a lot by watching the Miami offense and how they use him, Because, again, he's the focal point every Sunday for teams that play Miami.
Absolutely.
How do we get him open? Do we put him in motion? Do we run him out of the backfield? Do we run bubble screens? Do we send a go route early on and get defenses on their heels and then start hitting them with comeback and dig routes? There's a lot of things that you can do and you can learn from Miami. So I'm excited to see how Jameson Williams plays out.
And you saw the play earlier that they've used multiple times, that little end around to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Think about if it was Jameson Williams. Like, you've been using Amon-Ra as your best wide receiver, and he's actually gotten faster than when he was first drafted, but you can use Jameson in those situations too. So plenty of ways to get JMO involved. That's Ben Johnson's job. So that'll be another evaluation of that.